In this video, I'm going to cover the git worktree command, which I believe is an underutilized and underappreciated command in Git. At first, the concept of it may seem a bit unnecessary, but once you find a great use case for it, it can really be an immense improvement to your development workflow. So in this video, I'm going to cover what a working tree is, some common commands, the benefits of using working trees, and then a realistic workflow. So I'll start off first with the definition. And the git worktree command allows you to manage and check out multiple working trees at the same time. And a working tree in Git is essentially a directory that contains a checked out version of your project files. So when you do git clone on a repository, you are checking out typically the main branch's version of the files at that point in time. And the TLDR of this is that the git worktree command allows you to check out multiple branches at the same time. And right now, you might be like, why would I ever want to do this? But I'm going to show you why it's actually helpful. And one particular use case that I use it for, and I've been using git worktrees now for probably the past 2, maybe 3 months, is when I'm reviewing PRs. So I work on a team. There's a couple of us developers, and oftentimes, you get pull requests that come in, and I would typically kind of put them to the side because, I'm in the middle of my feature work. I don't want to disrupt my workflow. And moreover, I don't want to have to stash my changes and then apply or pop them off the stack later on. So typically I would wait till, I'm kind of done with what I'm working on. But what I discovered with working trees is that because I can now create a new working tree of a PR branch, for example, I can review PRs a lot faster without it disrupting my current workflow. And this allows me to work more efficiently as both a reviewer and a individual contributor. And so I'm going to show you some basic commands coming up here, but to kind of demonstrate how working trees work in Git, I'm going to kind of do some diagramming here. So let's say, for example, that you have this, this little box, and this is your main branch. This is your working tree. Main is what you have. And then typically what we do is you have main, and then you have your feature branch, whatever. And then maybe, you check main back out, and then maybe you have a PR branch, and everything is just kind of going in and out of this one working tree, right? That's typically how we work without really even knowing it. And so let's say we have main. Then let's say, I'm going to duplicate this. Let's say we also have, let's say we have our feature branch. So now we have 2 branches checked out. We have main, we have our feature branch. But then let's say, I don't know, we have our feature branch and then we get called to work on a PR. So now, all right, duplicate again. I think you're going to get the point here. But now we have our PR branch. And so now we have 3 working trees checked out at the same time. So let's say, you're done with your PR branch. Okay, now you only have your feature branch and your main branch. But then let's say, issue comes up in production. Crap, and now I got to deal with I can check out a hotfix branch. And that's really helpful because typically, say your feature branch or main is ahead, and you maybe don't want to mess up what you're working on because the hotfix branch is maybe 2 commits behind, blah, blah, blah. But you can kind of get the picture here. You can have an arbitrary number of branches checked out at the same time, all managing their own files and commits. And when you pull down things, it would only pertain to the working branch that you're in. I'm going to show that to you in an example, but this is just kind of a visual representation of how working trees can work. And so next I want to show you kind of just the basic list of commands, 4 commands to be exact. This is not an exhaustive list of commands available on for the git worktree command, but these are the common ones that I think you'll use unless you're going to be doing some really specific and advanced workflows. And the first command you do is git worktree list. And I bet right now, assuming you're watching this video and you've never worked with working trees before, if you run this in a repository and run git worktree list, it is just going to output main. So we always have at least one working tree, whether we realize it or not. And so, so if I go here, I'm in this repository that I've cloned. If I do git worktree list, I have one working tree, which is my main branch. And this repository correlates to this test repo that I have for a project I created for an article I wrote for DigitalOcean. And the reason I've chosen this project specifically is because it has 3 remote branches. And so right now I have main checked out, but I'm going to show you how I can check out these 2 other remote branches and all have them as working trees on my local file system. So let me go back and check. So we have A11Y issues and then test complete. Those are our 2 branches. And so now that brings us actually to, let me go back here to our second command, which is git worktree add. And it's important to note that this command needs to be run at the root of the cloned repository. This is because, it needs to know what branches are available, especially when you're pulling things from remote. You need to run it in the root of the cloned repository. However, when you run the command, you don't want to put the working tree inside the root of the cloned repo. And I'll show you in a second here. So again, I have this doggy directory repo cloned, and I want to do this command. Say git worktree add / worktrees A11Y issues, blah, blah, blah. So I'll show you here. I'm going to copy this and then go over here. And what this is doing is saying git worktree add, go down a directory into this worktrees folder, create another folder called A11Y issues, and then check out the A11Y issues remote branch. And so what I'm doing here is I have a separate worktrees folder outside of the main repositories folder so that there is separation between the two. And now if I do this, it says preparing worktree, checking out A11Y issues. And so now if I run git worktree list, it'll show that we have 2 working trees checked out because now we have A11Y issues and main. And I'm going to go ahead and check out the third repo that was there. So doing the same thing, but this time I'm checking out the test complete branch. And a typical thing I do is that when I'm creating work trees is that I typically have, a work trees folder, and then I will name another subfolder within that after the branch. And that way it's just really easy to identify, which working tree compares to which directory, if that makes sense. So now if I do this, again, preparing working tree, let me do git worktree list. Now we have 3 working trees checked out. So I have 3 simultaneous branches checked out at the same time. Great, right? Just to prove that we are actually checking out different branches of the repository, I'm actually going to go open it up. So I have it all open in VS Code. And look, now we have our doggy directory folder here. That pertains to our main branch. Then we have our work trees folder. And then within that, we have the 2 other working trees. One is the A11Y issues. And the second is the test complete. And one way to prove to you that it is actually checking out the test complete folder is that if I go to test complete here, go to source, go to app.test.js. Again, remember this was a sample project I created where I was showing how to use React testing library. This has all of the tests completed for the demo tutorial that I was showing, right? However, if I now go up to doggy directory source, again, now we're in our main main branch, and I go to app.test.js, notice that there's nothing there because this is the kind of the base place that I have for people who are cloning this repo so that when they follow along with the article that I wrote for DigitalOcean, they could go through and fill in the tests. But then this is just an example if they wanted to compare their work to it. So as you can see, we have 2 separate instances of working trees. And hopefully you're starting to see how this can be kind of powerful. So this will now bring us to our next command, which is the git worktree remove command. And so here, git worktree remove and the working tree path. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to a terminal. And so let's do git worktree remove. And let's say we want to remove that A11Y issues branch. So if I do that, now if I do git worktree list, we see now we only have 2 working trees checked out. So the main and the test complete. And then the last command I want to show you is git worktree prune. You won't need to use this one all the time unless you manually go in and remove a folder, but just to show you, let me go back to VS Code. And let me go here, and again, notice now we only have 1 working tree. I'm going to manually go ahead and delete this folder. So removing the test complete folder. So then now, if I go to here and run the git worktree list command, notice that it says that test complete is prunable. That's because I did not run the git worktree remove command like I did for the previous worktree. And so it's like, it notices that it's not there and that something needs to kind of be cleaned up. So now we can just do git worktree prune, and then we do git worktree list. Now we are left with our main branch and only 1 working tree. So that kind of brings it all full circle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to recheck out that test complete branch. Again, I'll show you because I want to show you how you can kind of automate the process to make things more realistic. Because, let me go down here, work trees are useful, But most of the time you need additional, let's say, things like environment variables or configurations in order for your project to run properly. Because simple projects like the doggy directory one I have here might work with work trees out of the box, but even moderately complex projects typically require like further customization, because most projects, especially production level projects, have environment variables or things that you're working with to connect to third party services or whatever. And so I can't address every project setup scenario, but I'll share an example of kind of how I automate this process for my jobs setup. And my job at my company, we use a Laravel PHP backend and then React with inertia on the front end. And all that specifics isn't really necessary. But what I'm going to do is show you kind of how I would automate something, say for this doggy directory folder. And it's going to be a contrived example, but I hope it'll point out how you can do this on your own. And the main thing from in this article I wrote, which if you want to read about how I did it for work, do it here, is to identify the steps you do repeatedly and automate them in a script, because work trees work very well with shell scripting. And so what I've done is I've actually prepared a script for us. Again, doggy directory, this repo does not need it, and it's a very contrived example, but I want to break it down very simply here so that you can see how you can do this on your own. And so I've created the script, and what this does is it takes in a parameter. So you specify what branch name that you want to create a working tree from. So, and then it'll take that, assign it to this variable. Then we have just define the repo root, and then we have this worktree directory, which takes the name of the branch name that we specify in the parameter. Then what it's going to do is just do some logging, echoing out, hey, I'm creating the work tree. And then it's going to, because we're running the script inside a worktrees folder that's not inside the main repo, we have to do this git -c. Don't worry about it. Google it if you want to know. But then we're doing worktree add, the worktree directory, and then the branch name. So it's kind of creating that same path that I was doing manually in the terminal when you saw me manually add the branch. And then it'll just, confirm that it added it. And then, then what it's going to do is cd into that worktree, run npm install to install all the front end dependencies, and then start the dev server. And again, very contrived example, but I hope you can see here, like say you had a more complex project, which I'm sure you do. Here you can do things like copy over environment variables. I don't know, copy over some scripts that you need. I have no idea, whatever you need to do, but you can kind of see from this very simple example how you can tailor it to suit your project's needs. And now we're going to go in the terminal. I've run ls. You can see that there's a setup scripts here. I'm in the worktrees folder. And now what I want to do is do / to run the script, setup script.sh. And I'm intentionally going to omit the branch name. Because we have some error checking set up in our script, it says error, no branch name was supplied. So just some niceties, not required. So now I want to create / setup test.sh. And let's say I want to recheck out the A11Y issues branch, right? That we had checked out before. So now I can do this and click run. And what it's doing, it's adding the git worktree for branch A11Y issues, preparing the working tree. Now it's going through running npm install, installing the dependencies. And if you notice, now it has gone into Chrome here and it's opened up the project on localhost 3000, which is where the project is served on. So again, this is a very simple example, but you can see how you can automate this process to make worktrees really helpful for you. And I hope that seeing this example and a realistic workflow of how you can use worktrees, especially in the context of pull requests, but hopefully you can see beyond that as well. And make sure to please leave any comments or questions that you have below. I'm happy to answer them, and I'll catch you in the next one.